Windows 8 tablet space is starting to get really full, especially when you consider the 8-inch space. Now there are so many choices that it becomes overwhelming at times for just an average consumer, and honestly, it can be quite confusing. And right here in front of us, we have the Lenovo Miix 2.8, the tiny tablet with a much bigger name than any tablet should have. So let's take a look. I feel like it's only appropriate to start with a quick tour of the device, so let's get to it. On the front is the obvious 8-inch screen, webcam, and Windows capacitive button, followed by some Lenovo branding. On the left-hand side, you've got absolutely nothing. On the bottom, you've also got absolutely nothing. On the right-hand side, things get a little bit more intricate. Micro USB 2.0 port, a slot with micro SD card expansion, and eventually SIM card support, volume rocker, and power button. On the top, you've got a headphone jack. That's it. On the back, you've got a 5 megapixel rear-facing camera, a speaker, some lifted Lenovo branding, Windows sticker, Intel sticker, FCC certification, etc. You know all that stuff. And that's it. Nothing too fancy, it's just a typical tablet layout. So before I get into the actual review, I want to give a quick disclaimer. This is, for all intents and purposes, a full computer, and because of that, there are a lot of different aspects to it. So I want to focus on only the major topics and not nitpick into little things, because those are going to come down to personal preference, and I just want to keep this review as concise and worthwhile as possible. So that being said, let's get into the review. So I really don't want to have to talk about this because I know that it's going to start a heated debate between fanboys, but I kind of have to, and that's Windows 8 and 8.1. On a tablet, it's actually phenomenal, and I think this is what Microsoft was aiming for when they developed it. It's when you start throwing it on desktops and laptops that you start to have problems. Performance is overall extremely good. I've never had any major lags or any concerns with performance in general. You can play your occasional game on it, your Minecraft, your Civilization. They're gonna run all right. It's definitely not a gaming tablet, but it's gonna do the trick pretty well. Now with that comes battery life. How's battery life? It's actually really good as well. I haven't been able to kill it in a single day, and that's impressive because if you consider whenever you buy something, you always have that honeymoon period where you're always wanting to be on it, and I haven't managed to kill it. I wish I could say the same for charging because it kind of sucks. It takes forever to charge. From dead to 100%, you're probably going to wait at least 2 hours, and it's micro USB 2.0, so you're kind of stuck with that. It's convenient, don't get me wrong, but it's not the best as far as speeds are concerned. So now let's talk about user experience real quick. This is something that I think Microsoft really knocked it out of the park with, because I think this is what a tablet truly should be. You can play on it if you want, but you can also be productive on it too. It does come pre-installed with Microsoft Office, but you need a key that comes in the box, but the one that came in the box for me wasn't valid for some reason, so I had to search through my OS and I ended up finding the correct key, but that's not something that people should have to do, and it's also not something that everybody knows how to do. Another issue I had was my preferred antivirus software, Malwarebytes, found about 30 or 40 different, quote, problems with whatever was pre-installed. I looked at them, they didn't seem potentially harmful, but I figured, well, let's just remove them anyway to save some space. And then I couldn't boot up my tablet anymore. Luckily, I managed to get into the recovery mode and restore from a point, but that's not something that people should have to deal with. Come on, that's kind of baloney. Aside from those two big issues, it really is a very smooth experience. So I wanted to talk a little bit about build quality, but there's really not a whole lot to say. This is a Lenovo product, and Lenovo's very good about having a solid build quality, and this product follows suit. It's got an aluminum back with a little bit of a faux aluminum plastic trim on the bottom, but overall it feels very nice and it keeps it nice and cool, especially when every once in a while you put some strain on it and it gets warm. It's just overall pleasant to hold, and definitely the highest quality you're going to find in any 8-inch tablet right now, especially for the price. Oh yeah, before I forget, let's talk about the cameras. There's one on the front, it's okay, and there's one in the back, it's okay. You probably won't be taking many pictures with an 8-inch tablet. If you do, as long as they're taken from the back camera, they'll be decent. Decent is the key word, and it's also decent at best. They'll be Not necessarily pleasing to the eye, but not so much that you want to throw it across the room like a frisbee. So like I said, it's there. So I've talked about every major topic I feel like, and now I kind of want to go into some side notes and personal experiences. Pixel junkies are going to be first to point out that it's not a 1080p display. It's 1280 by 800, and that's okay. Why is that okay? First off, phenomenal battery life, hello. Second, you really don't notice it. I'll be honest with you, I kind of thought it was 1080p at first because there are no jagged edges in the pixels, you can't see the pixels in the first place. So overall, it's perfectly fine. I'm okay with a 1280 by 800 resolution tablet. I already told you about my experience with Malwarebytes, and I told you to uninstall McAfee right away. But I do want to touch on the memory part of it. It comes in the 32 and 64 gig flavors. 32 is going to run you $300, and you might get a decent promotion where it'll be cheaper. And that goes the same for the 64 gig. It's going to be $349. You might catch it for $315 like I did. It truly depends on the time of day. One thing I want you to keep a special note of is, yes, you can add micro SD card expansion, but after the operating system takes up all of its space, the 32 gig model is going to have only 10 gigs left, and the 64 gig is only going to have roughly 40 to 45. Now that's plenty, but it is a full computer, so it kind of limits the potential a little bit. The Lenovo ThinkPad 8 has an option of 128 gigs, but by that point, you're reaching the price point where you should just buy a Surface Pro, so we're not going to get into that. But definitely keep in mind, I wouldn't suggest getting anything lower than the 64 gig model and then popping in an SD card whenever you need to. You can install programs to those SD cards, so that's really nice. So if you get a 64 gig card, or even just an 8 like I have sitting around right now, I just installed a small little game or two here, and it works just fine. Another thing to keep special note of is, you might have noticed there is no full USB port. It's just micro USB. Now you can just do what I did and get a micro USB to USB dongle. And that works just fine. It looks a little goofy, but it works. And you'll be able to use even full-on hard drives because I've tried it. This thing actually outputs that much power. And that's, that's okay. It would have been really nice to have a full USB port, but it's really not feasible given how thin the tablet actually is. So don't go complaining about that for this or any of the other 8-inch tablets because they're really just too small. What you could theoretically do, it's going to look really weird, is get the micro USB dongle like I have, and then get a USB man. That way you can plug as many USBs as you want into it. So it's going to look goofy, but it's going to work.
Let's talk speaker quality real quick. Now hear me out. They're not terrible, but they're certainly not great. The audio quality is good enough. Kind of like the camera, it's decent. It's decent at best, decent enough. If you're in a relatively quiet area, you'll be able to hear just fine, and the audio is going to sound nice and crisp and good. But if you're in an area that's anything semi-noisy, good luck. You won't hear anything at all. And it's not to say that it's Lenovo's fault necessarily, because you can only pack so much power into a thin little tablet like this, but I definitely expected a little more than I got. And one final thing to touch base on is the complete and utter lack of any kind of accessory for this tablet. I don't know whose fault this would necessarily be, but it kind of stinks because when you buy a phone or a tablet or anything of value, you kind of want to protect it in some way, shape, or form. And the only semi-quality offering I've seen would be the smart cover from Lenovo, which I've heard is a little shaky, so I'm not going to take my chances. It kind of stinks, and I hope it's addressed soon, but it is also an emerging 8-inch marketplace, so we got to give it some time.
And there you have it. That's your review of the Lenovo Miix 2 8. It's a really cool little tablet, and for the price, I truly don't think you can get a better deal, and that's what made me buy it. It's really unique, and it's kind of weird to see Windows in such a small form factor, but it's really cool, and it works very, very well. Overall, I would definitely suggest getting it. I would not recommend any other product if you're sucker on the $300 to $350 range. If you can go up to about $400 to $500, if you can get the Surface Pro at a good price, go for that one, get the 128 gig. Or get the Lenovo ThinkPad 8, which just came out. I don't even think the 128 gig is out yet, but go for that one. It pretty well takes everything this tablet did right and does it a little better. Let me know what are your thoughts on the whole small computer tablet space, especially Windows. Android and iOS, that's a whole other argument for another day. But I think it's really interesting to see what people think about this full-on computer in your hand in such a small form factor. Specifically the 8-inch, 7-inch, 9-inch. Surface that's almost like a really small laptop. But this particularly is what kind of makes me curious. I want to know what the general public thinks, so let me know down below. Also, feel free, hit that like button down below, subscribe for some more information in the coming days, and I appreciate you guys watching. As always, thanks, and I'll see you later.